triplet. You know that you are man up university extraordinaire. And we recently did a hangout together, and all the women were like, "Woo!" He was dropping gold. Can we have more of that? Can we have a part two? And so I decided I would isolate you so that you could just pour it all out. And basically, I had a couple of questions, but I want to
Okay.
start with, what do you see as women's biggest problem right now when it comes to relationships? We're coming up on Valentine's month, which is always a hard month for singles because
Right.
it just signifies if they don't have someone in their life or not. I'm way over it. It's just like another day as far as I'm concerned. But some people really do get stuck there, and they plummet into depression.
Yeah, they
Uh,
do.
and so I just wanted to address that a little. What does the mindset need to be? Because it's a holiday. I mean,
Right.
actually, it's rather macabre holiday. It's really about Saint Valentine's massacre. I don't know how Cupid got thrown in there in the middle of murder and bloodshed, but all of this. And then there's the wonderful little story about the monk that fell in love with the woman and got castrated because she would, all kinds of crazy stories.
Wonderful little story.
Little stories. So where should our heads be at a time like this?
Valentine's Day is tough, and I encourage women to remember it's just a day. And it's a
Mhm.
day that does not define your life. I think Valentine's Day is challenging for single people. Christmas Eve is challenging for single people. New Year's Eve is challenging for single people. And it's really, if you watch from Christmas Eve to Valentine's Day, there are a lot of engagements. And so they're not
Mhm.
only having to go through the holidays by themselves, but now social media, they're seeing all the proposals and all of that. So it's just more piled on. But I think they have to remember it's just a day. It's one day, and you can mess up your life trying to feel better one day. You
Yeah.
can really mess up your life trying to feel better one day. Because one of the things that I've seen that I wish that uh, we wouldn't do, men or women, um, is borrow somebody's affection for that day.
Ah. Ooh,
You
ooh.
know, a lot of people, I've seen it happen. You borrow
Yeah.
somebody's affection for or an attention for the special occasion, whether it's
Mhm.
Valentine's Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, your birthday. You borrow somebody's attention and affection, and then you want to dismiss it once the day is over. It's not fair to them. And then all of a sudden, you have somebody who won't go away. You
Mhm.
won't go away. I saw some comedian posted the other day. He said, and this is a whole nother thing. We saints, so but it's just what he said. He said, um, "You can burn all the sage you want. I'm coming back." I
Ah.
fell out laughing. He said, "Burn
Oh
all the sage
no.
you want. I am coming back." I just
Mm-mm-mm.
think we have to just survive it. Survive it.
Yeah.
It's not going to
Mm.
feel good for some until you get over it and it doesn't bother you. But until then, it's not going to feel good. All of that. Just survive it. To your original question, it's a hard question because one, I've learned not as a man to not try to tell women what they should be doing because they don't like that. So I'm trying to find out, figure out a way to answer your question
Mhm.
without getting in trouble. But here's a suggestion to my sisters because I do sessions with ladies. We call them sister sessions. And as a
Mhm.
brother or a father or a mentor, I just kind of share some things. I would suggest to my sisters that one, you focus inward. And I know it's easy to say that, but you do. You got to focus inward. And here is what we know. Um, Stars are going to shine, period. And
Yeah.
if If you are a star, I don't care what the ratio is, I don't care what the demographics are, and we're not even adding in the factor of the providence of God. But if you just focus on yourself and make yourself the star that you are, the star is going to shine, and then you're ready. Because I think I said in that session that one of the challenges for that sisters should know is that we as men can be committed to our attraction to you, not committed to you, but committed to our attraction to you.
Break
And
that down.
here it is. It's I if I were single, I see someone who is physically attractive, um, emotionally engaging, has the intellectual prowess that I enjoy and the like. And so that's the initial layer. That's the
Mhm.
initial layer. If we start dating and things start happening, I have to get beyond. If we go into covenant, I have to get beyond my attraction to you
How does
because
that happen, Derek? I want you to really enlarge on that because
okay,
I know one of the questions that we had in the session that we didn't get to was how do you get a man to move from his commitment to attraction to commitment to covenant relationship?
okay. You don't, he does.
Mm,
It's
okay.
it's that simple.
Hmm.
We make covenants out of our own desire. You, especially in the demographics of today. You used to hear the stories, or I did, used to hear the stories of older men in my life when I was a young boy or teenager and that type of thing. And a grandfather would look in the kitchen and see a grandmother and say, uh, she helped me get my life together and she settled me down. And if it weren't for her and so forth and so on, I don't think that generation exists as prevalently as it did. Men now, it's about us. You're not going to make me do anything. What you can do is be yourself. And I'm so enthralled with who you are, not how fine you are, not how you look, because I can get all of that anywhere else. But if there is a match with us and I see that we complement each other, we supplement each other where we need to, then now I'm committed to you. I want to make a covenant relationship with you, not just my attraction. We're beyond that. There's something about you that does it for me.
Mm,
And what ladies have to understand now is when you don't do that for a guy, you don't do it. You can
mm,
be you can be perfect and still not be his choice. You can be everything he needs and still not be his choice.
wow.
He's got to choose. And the fact that he's got to choose, you have to leave that space. There is no manipulation. Uh, there is no ultimatum. He's got to choose. Now, the challenge that we're having is we have too many women who stay with the guy who hasn't chosen them yet.
That's what I wanted to get to. I just got an email about this woman who said she had been with this guy for 8 years. And he finally called her and said he was tired of the relationship and he was getting ready to marry someone else. And I was like, 8 years? You gave this dude 8 years of your
Right.
life? Are you kidding me? So I did want to ask, do women make it too easy for men to coast and not commit?
Without
Because I
question.
believe, yeah,
Without question. Too easy. And I love the word coast. I love the word coast because just like the email that you got, and I kind of hesitated when I talked about this in the hangout, because you never know. Here's what I've learned over the years: some of the stuff that I just say to be helpful and to be informative is actually somebody's present reality.
Yeah.
It's their present reality. And so I hesitated the other day when I said that men are capable of being with you while still looking for the one they want to choose. And it's like he he's the one you're good to chill with, but you're not the one who fills him and can cause him to be still. And
Mm,
we can still be we can date, we can be engaged, and unfortunately we can even be married, because what ends up happening is you can decide, well, she's not out here, so this
mm,
is okay. So, and then you never get everything you want in one person. So I guess what I really want is not out here. So let me just settle down with her.
mm.
You know,
Well, what are you looking for? What is a man looking for at that point? I mean, when he's got someone that's a good woman,
mhm.
that's attractive, who's into him, and he's still looking. What is he looking for?
It's indescribable. It's kind of like I think um I think Curvin said this in the hangout, is that um it's that it is what
It,
it's she's got it.
the
Whatever
it.
that it is, it's the it factor. Whatever that it is,
Okay.
she
Mm,
does it. And what I used to tell guys back in my man up sessions is this: that there are a couple different women you're going to meet in your life. There's the
mm,
woman who, uh, if she knocks on the door, you're not going to answer. There's the one, she's just not for you.
mhm,
There's the woman who knocks on the door and you answer it, you're interested. And then there's the woman who shows up and the doors and the windows just swing open on their own. There is no resistance. And what I should tell the guys, you better hope that that third one is good for you, because
mm.
if she's not, you are in trouble. She has
Trouble.
that irresistible it factor. And don't let it become don't let it become sexual, and she's the one that everything just swings open for, and she's not good for you. You
Mm.
are in the kind of trouble that requires you to go find God for help. You're gonna need God. You are going to need God. The great thing is when you get the person who everything just swings open for, and she's the right person. So it's that
Mhm.
it is that it's 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 that thing that makes Adam open his eyes and just start naming her.
Mm.
He just
Mm.
opens his eyes. She's bone
And
of my
says,
bones
"Whoa,
and
wait."
flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called. He just opens his eyes. He's not thinking nothing about what God said pre-surgery. I'm going to make for you a prepared helper. God does not, if you read that text, God says nothing.
That's true.
When he presents Adam, Eve, God says nothing, because he
That's true.
knows he doesn't have to say anything. Adam opens his eyes and this is the first woman ever, he starts naming her. He starts naming her, and he
Mm.
names her something that gives her her own identity, but she's definitely connected to him. I heard one I heard
Mhm.
one person said what he did
Now, it
was
was said,
hmm, he said, "Whoa,
go
man."
ahead. Wait a minute. He said, "Whoa, man." He must have been a
Absolutely.
sight to behold.
Had to be.
Now,
And that's the
and
it.
that brings up, yeah, because I always thought that it was very interesting that God took the time to say that He gave Adam the ability to name all the animals first, and He names all the animals, but there was no suitable partner found for him. And I go, well, was Adam looking? Or was it something that he recognized that none of these people fit? And of
Mhm.
course, when Eve comes on the scene, he definitely recognizes her. Now, it's been said that when a man sees that woman, he knows right away. He might not act or reveal it right away, but he knows right away. How true is that?
Very true. It's very true. Um, remember the old church back in the day when someone would rejoice in the Lord and they would, or the preacher was preaching and he would say, I got a case of the can't help it. I'm trying to stop, but I got a case of the can't help it. A woman can give a man a case of the can't help it, and he can know it. He can know it. Um, I remember when I was single, and Lord, I shouldn't tell this story,
Mhm.
but but I remember when I was single. I should not tell this story. I remember when I was single, and I knew I wasn't ready for a relationship, and so I just knew I was in that space, and so I just guarded myself accordingly. Um, I was sitting in the back of a church. I'll never forget it. I was sitting in the back of a church. I was Michelle. I was in Chicago. I'll never forget it. I was in
Mhm.
Chicago. I had preached several times
Okay.
that morning. A friend of mine was preaching a radio broadcast that night. I went, slipped in, sat in the back. And so after church, I get out of my pew. I'm walking up down this aisle to go speak to him. And a lady who I didn't know, she was one of my social media followers. And it startled me because it was the first time somebody came up to me that I'd never seen, never heard, and just called me by my name.
Mm.
And it literally startled me. And I knew instantly have no further conversation with this lady right now. Go see the pastor and say hi and go on back to your hotel and fly out tomorrow morning. Because I
Mm.
knew instantly uh, there could be a connection. And I knew I
Mm.
wasn't ready for a connection. And I knew I didn't want to waste my time or her time. But yeah, on site, I knew it was
Mm.
just something about her, and so I moved on very very quickly. It does happen. Now the
Mm.
challenge when we tell those kind of stories is that too many ladies are saying,
Was it
"Well,
me?
that ain't ever happened to me. That didn't happen to
Right.
me." And maybe
Mhm.
it did, and he was honorable enough to keep it moving.
Sure. Mhm. 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 Now, that's so interesting because I remember I had a mentor say to me, I've watched you in a series of relationships and you never give a man the permission to land. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
hmm, that's interesting. What
Mm-hmm.
does that look like, Derek? How do women sometimes sabotage that plane that's trying to come in and land?
Right.
What would you say?
It happens a lot. Um, and I think here's the difficulty for in relationships with that is you can take a man you can take a man so far in the plane ride and then tell him he can't land, and that is frustrating. What do you mean we can't land? Especially um, when you just flew in private.
Mhm. Mm.
you know you know, and especially if you're a certain kind of woman, a certain kind of woman, it it's her joy to give.
Mhm.
It's giving, catering, paying attention, all of that is what she likes to do. She's not taking into consideration that it's hard to receive all of that and then be told you can't keep it.
Mm.
And so that's what ends up happening. It's like we can't keep circling. And what happens in a relationship when it keeps circling and it never lands, it runs out of fuel.
Mhm.
Somebody runs out of fuel and then we have a crash. But I don't know why y'all do that. Y'all shouldn't do that to men. Y'all shouldn't do
I
that to
don't
men.
think, I mean, I didn't realize I was doing it. I
No,
really did.
and in many cases, it's not intentional.
Right. I mean, I remember an ex-boyfriend because, the funny thing about I keep all my boyfriends except for the ones I had to file, restraining orders against. But I remember one guy I was really crazy about. He ended up marrying someone else on me. Actually, got married on me twice. He went away, he came back, he went and got married someone else.
Wow.
And, to this day, he's still confessing his undying love for me. And I'm like, fool, you got married on me twice. How much,
Right,
you love me, but you didn't love me enough, obviously.
right,
So I spoke to him. I said, why didn't you just ask me to marry you? And he said, no. I said, well, why didn't you marry me? That's what I said. He said, because you
mhm,
never asked. And I was like, I never asked. What kind of
mm,
foolishness is that? I mean, I
right.
totally got lost on that. It was like, really? I was supposed to ask you? I don't think that's how it's done. So,
No, it's
what
not
is
how
it?
it's
What's
done.
that trigger in a man that makes him feel safe to land, safe to ask the question?
There are um, there are signs, and there are um, some of us as men, we don't have a problem hearing no. You hear guys it's like, she said no, she cussed me out. Even when they're just trying to meet somebody, they don't have a problem with hearing no. But then there are
Mhm.
others who do have a fear of rejection. And
Mhm.
so, un, you know, and I have taught men, I'll be honest, I've taught men that should never be a question you ask unless you're pretty sure on the answer.
Mm.
And there, to get turned down with a marriage proposal in the middle of a basketball arena, you should have known something. You shouldn't be getting no, that shouldn't happen. You you got to know the answer to the question before you pop the question in front of 22,000 people. You
Oh,
got to
yeah,
know.
I guess you should. Yeah.
But there are those who fear that rejection, and so they
Mhm.
never ask. There are those who who know already that uh, that the woman that they're with is the upgrade in the relationship, and
Mm.
not necessarily financially or in, but you can view her as, man, I am so blessed, fortunate, how whatever you want to put on, to be able to be in her space, and so they don't risk it. They don't risk it. They don't risk it because. And here's the weird part. And just did a lesson the other day on rejection and regret. Here is the weird part. In the man's eyes, he think it's better for me to never know if I could have had her than to be crushed with the knowledge that I can't.
Wow.
He plays games with this ego with that. And I've seen people not only go and marry somebody else, but go and marry a, as my mother would say, a facsimile thereof.
Mm,
It's like, wait a minute, she could be her stunt double. What, you know,
wow.
and you and he goes to try to find the closest thing, the
Mm.
closest thing, and he'll discover that just because it says aluminum foil doesn't mean it's Reynolds wrap.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That is good. So let me ask you this, because on one hand, we tell singles that they should be secure and competent and fruitful and
Mhm,
productive and purposeful in their own lives and be a whole person on their own.
mhm.
And then we hear the cry from the peanut gallery that men are intimidated by successful women, which I don't believe, by the way. I
No,
believe it's
no.
how a woman wears
Boys
her
are.
success. Yeah. And I also think it's the way a woman wears her success.
That's true.
Some people are obnoxious with their success and it's a turn
Right.
off. So,
Mhm.
a successful woman can be actually quite sexy if she wears her success well. However, um, I want to talk about the tension between being content and whole as a single and that not being translated wrongly as, well, she doesn't need a man or want a man.
Mm,
You
mm.
know what I mean? Because
I
there's
get
that
it.
thing line where I think that men's radar says that's all she wants. She doesn't want me. She doesn't want any man in her space. And that's not necessarily true, but you've gotten on with the business of living because hey, you need to do that.
Right. Gotta do that. Gotta do that. It's tough. There was a movie years and years ago, Gabrielle Union. I she got on my nerves in this movie. It's Gabrielle Union, uh, Deliver Us from Eva.
Oh yes.
Oh, she got on my nerves. And she was this cold, stoic, I don't need a man, that whole I'm gonna protect my sister, the whole nine. And so it was her success was worn in a very, very toxic way.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, I have just discovered that most things, both male and female, that um, are ostentatious is usually either one, they're egomaniacs for real,
Mm-hmm.
or they're just covering up for something. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter how fine she is, you want to leave the egomaniacs alone, leave them alone. And then the ones who are covering up, you have to decide if it's worth trying to chip away, um, because whatever they're covering up is deeply rooted and deeply seated in
Mm-hmm.
them. Um, but it is really, really important that you are confident, especially for men who are attracted to confidence.
Yeah.
And the um, there are those who are attracted to confidence that is is couched in beauty. Confidence makes a woman even more beautiful, even if
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't have the physical traits. Confident m- makes that blows people away. Then you have the person who's intimidated by that. That's not a match. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Is it a match? You can have two great people, but it doesn't mean that they're a match. And so I would ask women to wear their confidence well, wear their sensitivity well, um, we have a group of women, especially in that 40 to 55 age range, who, whether it's their upbringing, whether it's been twisted theology in church, whatever it's been, they are simply bent on not in any way being considered less than a man.
Mm,
Just that they are, no matter what it takes, and they will fight that tooth and nail, which gets me to the last piece of it. Some women, some single women aren't in a relationship because if they're honest with themselves, they don't value it enough to make the sacrifices that are necessary to be in it.
mm,
So ultimately, um, for champions, and we want great championship relationships. For champions, there's sacrifice. You know, what am I willing to give up in
mm,
order to have this? What
mm,
am I willing to exchange? Am I willing to turn it down a little bit because he needs me to? He doesn't think I am less than he is. We're equals, but his sensitivity level, maybe I may need to turn it down a little bit. Over here, do I have to um, help him uh, work through some surface issues? That's that whole list. How many things on your list is actually surface? And can we work through some surface issues so that we can have this beautiful soul?
mm.
What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? And what we have is, there are women of a certain age who have decided they ain't giving up nothing. And then you have women in their 20s that give up too much too soon.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I think those are the two.
Those are the two poles. Those are the
Those are
two
the two
ends of the
roles.
those are the
They're
two poles.
extreme. Yeah.
And so it's
What?
tough.
Yeah. What do you think is the one thing that most people don't know about relationships? Um, because everybody wants one. But
Mhm.
what would you say is the one thing that most people don't take into consideration in the wanting?
Um, if I had to narrow it down to one, um,
Or you can give me your top three if you want.
I think I say in my book Happier Endings that I think relationships are about, um, they're about um, excitement, contentment, and fulfillment. In enjoyment, I say enjoyment because I know people will take the word excitement the wrong way. Enjoyment, contentment, and fulfillment. I think one of the things that um, we don't do, there's a lot of work for some people to get from contentment to fulfillment. And we'll get stuck at contentment and not do what it takes to get to the next place. Or we're immature and we have a series of relationships that are simply built on enjoyment. And so I
Mm,
never get to contentment or fulfillment. I just stick to, is it fun? Is it nice? Is it? And so I guess the big thing is that we're missing is figuring out what it takes to get to that next level and being willing to do it.
mhm,
Because here is the setup. Uh, if I don't get to fulfillment, we're going to push this whole thing in reverse. If I don't get to fulfillment, I'm going to lose contentment and I'm going to lose enjoyment. And once I lose contentment and once I lose enjoyment, either I'm going somewhere else, I will die in my own soul because I will just say, okay, we here now, we married, I love God, I don't want to get divorced, we're going to suffer it to be so. Or
I
if
like
they're
that.
long-term dating, they become insufferable in that relationship because they don't enjoy it. And the reason they don't enjoy it is that they didn't push all the way through to the third tier.
So how long is too long? Because like I was telling you about that woman hanging out for
8
8 years.
years, 8 years is too long.
You know,
8
my
years
mother,
is too long.
my mother told my daddy after dating for a year, "It's been nice knowing you." And he said, "What?"
Mhm, mhm.
He said, "I think a man should know what he wants to do after a year. So that's my limit. I'm
That's
out of
wisdom.
the relationship after a year." And he
That's
said,
wisdom.
we're getting married." And they got married. I mean,
That's
it's
wisdom.
said that men don't do what they don't have to do. And
Right.
so if you keep putting a
That's
man to
wisdom.
sleep and he can just coast as long as he wants, why does he have to commit?
Absolutely. That's wisdom. And I'm with your mother. I'm with your mother.
Yeah,
After
and
a
60
year,
years later, they still here.
and here's what will happen in that year. Um, I'll if you let me, I'll stick around for the enjoyment, even though I'm not content or fulfilled.
Mm, okay.
Because um, sometimes what I have is better than having nothing. So if you let me, and you'll see that in relationships, that their relationship is just these successive episodes of enjoyment.
Mm,
And so it's this vacation and this thing and this, this expensive trip and this, and we just keep doing things to keep the enjoyment going because outside a five-star resort and outside a a diamond restaurant and outside the gifts, I don't really like you that much.
oh,
No, I don't really. It's not that you're bad, it's that we didn't get to fulfillment.
no.
So I need the stuff. I need the accoutrements. I need the stuff to keep setting fire. I have to
Mm,
keep setting a new fire. This
mm,
fire doesn't burn long. So we have to
mm.
keep doing something to set a new fire.
That
And
oxytocin.
absolutely,
They say it
absolutely.
only lasts a year. And then you have to, you got to restoke the
You
fire.
gotta re-up. You gotta re-up. And so I think that's important that yeah, a year, we know what we want. And then in many cases, I think I talked a little bit about fragility when we were talking in the
Mhm.
hangout. Um, don't make it hard. Oh, this is gonna sound bad. And I've never said this in my life. I've never said this in my life. Don't make it hard, sis, for someone who needs to leave you.
Mm,
Don't be so fragile that he cares enough about your tears and your hurt feelings that he stays with you against his will.
mm,
And that's how you get to that year and still don't have anything because maybe you made it too difficult to break up with you.
mm. So he's just there.
He's just there. It's like, man, I'm not going through that drama. If she gonna be always coming to my house anyway, I might as well just let her come into my house on good terms. She gonna be knocking on the door anyway. If she gonna always be calling me anyway, I might as well just let her call me. It's no, don't make it, and I don't make it hard to break up with you because sometimes you're doing yourself a favor by allowing somebody to leave who doesn't want to be there.
Woo! Okay, so last example, wind this up.
Okay.
Real life example. Couple, the guy was crazy, crazy, crazy about her, got all everybody together to talk her into dating him. Finally, it happens. Oh, head
Mhm.
over heels in love, blah, blah, blah. Musician type. Enter some girl stage left that sings. Next thing, the girl is staying at his house. He didn't tell the girlfriend. The girl staying in the house doesn't know the girlfriend is the girlfriend until there's a confrontation.
Mhm.
And he says, well, he promised to help the girl out, so he can't get rid of the girl out of his place.
Right.
What's going on there? And what do you tell that other girl who is supposed to be the beloved, so highly treasured, who is now obviously not the priority?
She's not the priority. I think we have to set boundaries in relationships early. We have to set
Mhm,
expectations in relationships early. We have to talk about how we're going to engage with the opposite sex early. If you are in a field that is very soulish, music, that's the soul. If you're in a field that's very soulish, you have to manage soul.
mhm,
You have to manage soul. Um, a man who's very passionate, a man who's very passionate about his music, that is not all he's very passionate about. His passions will continue. We see that with David. His
mhm,
passions will continue. And part of that passion, unfortunately, is being a rescuer, especially if the one who is being rescued has talent.
mm.
So what's the movie with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, and
Yeah, yeah,
he sees the talent in her, and he's fighting his own alcoholic demons. Yeah, that happens. So you got to set those boundaries. You've got to set those boundaries because um friendships start with connection, like passions. So
mhm,
if a guy finds a a woman who loves music the same way he does, there it is. That there it is. And it takes management to recognize management of the soul to just keep it where it's supposed to be. And
mhm,
um, sometimes you just have to pay money to help people out without bringing them into your space. Because once you bring them into your space, it creates a totally different dynamic.
So now let's generalize it.
Okay.
You find yourself in a situation, because this happens a lot, Derek,
Hmm.
uh, where men have many more options
Right.
and they like having their cake and eating it too.
Hmm.
And some women are afraid to say, hey, it's me or her.
Hmm.
What needs to happen in that scenario? I mean, how does a woman keep her heart safe and not look like an idiot at the end of the day, because she's dancing this precarious dance of waiting to see who he's going to pick?
Hmm.
Is there a win-win situation in that?
There really isn't, because ultimately he does have to choose.
Mhm,
And in every relationship, there is a dimension of vulnerability. In
mhm,
every relationship, there's a risk that we take. And so there's really no way out of that. It's like I want to skydive, but I don't want to jump out the plane. Or
mhm,
there's no way out of that. If you're gonna skydive, you got to jump out of the plane. And
mhm,
so you have to take those particular risks, but you have to set boundaries, and you have to be clear on what your needs and expectations are. And it's interesting that you bring these kind of scenarios up, because what I've discovered is that what breaks up relationships is not necessarily if the people are connected or if they love each other. What ends up breaking relationships is that they don't agree on how they're going to do life together.
Mm-hmm.
They don't agree on how they're going to do life together because they don't have those conversations
Mm-hmm.
until it's too risky to have them. And I used to tell couples, when I would do premarital counseling, is there anything that could stop your wedding day?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that could stop your wedding day? If there's something that could stop your wedding day, then y'all need to talk about it, because whatever could stop your wedding day could end your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So have take the risk now before you say I do, and let them make a choice. Let them make a choice. Hey, I know you're a musician, but here are my expectations for the studio. Here are my expectations, because a whole lot of stuff can happen in the studio. you
Yeah.
know here are my expectations for the studio. Here are my expectations for the women in your life. It's um because they're going to be, and
Yeah.
you can have that. Remember the episode of of Ray, when she's like, why is she here? I'm your
Mm-hmm.
wife on the road. Why she says to Ray, when Ray Charles's wife shows up, she's like, no, I'm your wife on the road. Why is she even here? And so when I saw that scene, it reminded me um that we all decide what we're willing to accept. And
Yeah.
you have to decide, can I accept this for the long term if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't change? Because it
Mm-hmm.
may not change. Oh, he's going to
Right.
change later.
Or
No,
it could be
he's not.
several
Absolutely. And so we have to decide, can I live with this if it doesn't change? And I ask people in the premarital session, is who he is or is who she is that okay with you forever?
times.
Who they are right now, is that because I don't want you marrying what you think his potential is.
Oh, come on now.
You know, he may not become that.
Yeah.
He may not become that. And so is who he is right now good enough for you?
Mhm.
And you have to ask that question.
Mm, great question. Okay, so as we wrap up, is there any last thing that we ought to know? Us poor little women who just can't figure you men out.
One, I I've probably only met a handful of poor little women in my life. And
Mhm.
that was because somebody damaged them. Women, when God put Adam to sleep, when God put Adam to sleep, it put Adam in a disadvantage. Adam the only thing that Adam knows. Oh God, I don't want to be preachy, but somebody's gonna preach this when they hear it. The only thing that Adam knows about a woman is that it started with a rib and she was made by God. That's all he knows, is the rib and God's hands. Everything else, with the help of God, and the help of relationships, he's got to figure it out. So when you start talking about that poor little women, I don't buy that. God put some stuff in women that he didn't tell us. And so I just encourage them to tap into that. Tap into who God made you. Tap
Mhm.
into the the invisible, unrevealed things that God did when he created you. And and that star will shine. Uh,
Mm.
somebody will see that star, the right person will see that star, and it may take them longer than you think. But I guarantee you this, it is better that a great relationship start in your 40s than you
Mm.
have to recover from one for 20 years that started in your
Mhm.
20s and you're still trying to get over it in your 40s.
Wow. That's a word there. Because everybody's in a hurry,
In a
Derek. You know,
hurry, in a
I mean,
hurry.
it's like I'm 23 and life is over because I should have been married, but I'm 23. Good Lord, you a chicken. You still got wet feathers. You ain't even got feathers yet.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
you don't even know who you are till you're 40. I mean,
You
really.
don't. You have no idea. You
Yeah.
have no idea. This is a whole nother thing. Somebody said to me one time, they said, speaking about men, they said, I don't fool with y'all till y'all. She says, I've always dated older men. She was in her
Mhm.
30s. She says, I've always
Mhm.
dated older men. She says, I don't fool with y'all till y'all 40 because y'all don't know
Mhm.
who you are until you're 40.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, actually, I should check this out. The ratio of marriages from when people get married in their 20s, how many
Mhm.
divorces take place versus those who get married later in life.
Absolutely.
That would be
How
an
many
interest.
divorces? I think
Yeah.
the information, the empirical data would be there. And how many, not just divorces, but how many horror stories
Yeah.
of those first 15 years. They made
Yeah.
it, they got it together, didn't end in divorce, but the
But they
horror
had to
story,
fight for it.
they had to fight for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Derek, it's always rich talking with you. You
Always a
always
pleasure, my sister.
drop all these chunks of steak in my lap. Lord Jesus, I need some barbecue sauce. I need a grill. I know that a lot of people are going to be blessed by this. So thank you for taking time out to share and drop nuggets of gold. You know, I think that women are really suffering from a lack of self-worth and understanding their value and their power when it comes to men. And so they don't set boundaries and they do settle and they do share when they don't want to share. And so these conversations are good for just pushing all the right buttons and making people think about themselves and assess where they are and what boundaries they need to put in place and what their standards and expectations need to be, and standards versus expectations, because some
Mhm,
stuff is
mhm,
unrealistic, but there are realistic standards that we should have, and our expectations can shift, and they do shift over time. What I like now, and compared to what I liked in my 20s, my 30s, or even my 40s, is vastly different.
vastly different. And that's the beauty of God, that
Mhm.
God can take two people. He knows, he's the only one who knows who they will become.
Yeah.
And he can take two people knowing what they will individually become and put them together and let them grow together and they become who they're supposed to become. Um, the relationship is what it's supposed to be, and the individuals in the relationship become what they're supposed to be. That's the
Mhm.
power of God. You know,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
talk about 60 years of marriage, that journey of evolution and development and change and all of that. And it
Yeah.
starts with, you know what? I want you. I don't want an idea of a happy relationship or a happy marriage or you know what? I want you.
Mm.
And that starts it. And I think that's different than being in love with love. That's
Yeah.
different than being connected and desiring the idea of a marriage. It's, I want you.
Yeah.
And I think, and I wish that for everybody.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We'll do this again.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay.